Hi, my name is Steve and I'm the developer of the Reserve Funding Analyzer, and I want to do this relatively short video so that you can see the functions and some of the features within the Reserve Funding Analyzer. As you can see, the Reserve Funding Analyzer, or RFA, I'll call it for short, is a fairly substantial Microsoft Excel application. When you first open the application, or the workbook as it's known in Excel language, you come up to the first sheet, which is the general data sheet. It's on this sheet that you enter your non-volatile data such as the association name, the number of units, starting reserve balance, inflation rate, current year, annual interest rate earned, such things as that. Once this detail is entered, the next aspect would be to enter your reserve components. And to help you re-enter the reserve components, I've included a small checklist. The checklist has several typical categories and also reserve component names that you would probably see in a typical HOA or small association. You can go through this, and I'll just scroll through some of the things here so you can see there's everything in here from swimming pools to mailboxes, common walls, road surfaces, and such things as that. As you're entering the data, you notice that there's some cost data here that I've already entered. You can filter those out by saying I'm just going to select only that data that I've entered cost information, and you can see the cost information is entered here. And there's some other information, and those are some of the details you get into when you're actually using the workbook. Once you've completed this information, you can then copy all of these details by clicking on the orange button. You click OK, and the workbook then calculates and moves all of that data to the variable data sheet. And you can see here on the variable data sheet, all that data has been entered. Now, what you can do in situations like this then is you can go through and decide which of these have accurate cost information, which things you want to actually include or exclude. For example, if I wanted to exclude a particular item here from it, I can just select that item, whatever it is. For example, here's one here that's called Asphalt Roads Overlay and Replace. If I wanted to exclude that item, I click on this button here and it would be excluded. Now you can see that this graph over here made a significant change. If I include it back again, if I wanted to exclude some other items here, for example, the concrete entrance replace, I could exclude that, and again you can see that this detail over here changes. The other detail on here includes this detail right here, which is the annual dues increase. This detail here is the special assessments. If you have any one-time incomes coming in, for example, the sale of a property would be a one-time income. And then this detail right here is whether you want to include or exclude contingency funding. You select whether you want to use cash flow or straight line funding, and there's some information here on this help screen that tells you what that is. And you can set the threshold percent. Some threshold percent between 0 and 100%. And then that threshold line appears over here. Now, without going into a lot of detail, let's assume you went and you did a lot of what-if analysis here and you've developed your funding plan. Then you can go to these other sheets and you can use the typical method of navigating in Excel, which is on these what they call sheet tabs. But on every one of these sheets there's a small compass icon, and if I bring the compass icon up, I can navigate to these sheets very quickly. And you can see how fast that is and how relatively painless it is to move from one sheet to the other. There's a lot of information in here. It includes everything from a community, this is your current summary statistics, financial summary charts and graphs, and just change the zoom level here so you can see how many of them there are. It's not necessary that you use all of them, but certainly you'll find most of them fairly useful. And then for your reporting information, there's the financial summary tables. This particular one here is the full 30-year one. And then I have another table here which breaks it up into groups of 3, which makes it a little easier and more readable when you copy and paste these individual groups into a reporting format. There's also a component allocation graphs. Here you can see the 30-year reserve fund allocation by component in both a bar chart and a pie chart format, and also the same with the reserve fund allocation by category instead of just by component itself. That's pretty much the 5-minute tour, and I thank you very much for watching.